CGTN live from Beijing. I'm Han Zheng. We start with a crucial meeting of the Communist Party of China. Its Central Committee concluded a plenary session in Beijing on Thursday. The meeting approved a document on the party's history and achievement from the past 100 years since it was founded. Officials are holding a press conference in Beijing to introduce the guiding principles of the plenum. Now let's cross live to the venue.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends from the media, good morning. Welcome to the press conference of the CPC Central Committee. Between November the 8th and the 11th, the 19th CPC Central Committee held its 6th plenary session in Beijing. On the occasion of the centenary of the CPC and at the critical juncture where the time frames of the two centenary goals converge, this meeting is one of great significance. The plenary session has concluded all the agenda items and considered and adopted the resolution on the major achievements and historical experience of the party over the past century. Today we have with us leading officials of relevant departments to brief on the decisions and guidelines of the 6th plenary session, explain the content of the resolution, and answer your questions. Present at the press conference are Mr. Wang Xiaohui, Executive Vice Minister of the Publicity Department of the CPC Central Committee, Mr. Jiang Jingquan, Director of the Policy Research Office of the CPC Central Committee, Mr. Han Wenxiu, Executive Vice Minister of the Office of the Central Financial and Economic Affairs Commission of the CPC Central Committee, and Mr. Qu Qingshan, Director of the Institute of Party History and Literature of the CPC Central Committee. Now I'll hand over to Mr. Wang Xiaohui for opening remarks. Friends from the press, it is a great pleasure to give you a briefing on the 6th plenary session of the 19th CPC Central Committee. The 19th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China convened its 6th plenary session in Beijing from November the 8th to the 11th. It lasts 4 days. The Political Bureau of the Central Committee presided over the meeting. The plenary session heard and discussed the report on the work of the Political Bureau presented by General Secretary Xi Jinping on behalf of the Political Bureau and considered and adopted the resolution on the major achievements and historical experience of the party over the past century and the resolution on the convocation of 20th National Congress of the Communist Party of China. General Secretary Xi Jinping delivered explanatory remarks on the draft resolution on the major achievements and historical experience of the party of the past century and made an important address. The session successfully completed all items on the agenda. At the session, the Central Committee fully affirmed the work that its Political Bureau has carried out since the 5th plenary session of the 19th Central Committee. It was unanimously agreed that in the face of stern challenges and formidable tasks, the CPC Central Committee, with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, has given full consideration to both the broad strategic goal of national rejuvenation and the profound changes unseen in a century in the world, followed the prevailing trend of the times, maintained strategic initiative, and delivered on a string of major overarching undertakings that are deeply encouraging, resolutely overcome the many risks and challenges, and scored proud achievement in the cause of the party and the people. The hearts and minds of the party, the military and the people are more united than ever before. What has happened proves that to establish Comrade Xi Jinping's core position on the Party Central Committee and in the party as a whole, and to define the guiding role of the Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, represents the common aspiration of the whole party, the whole military, and Chinese people of all ethnic groups. It is of decisive significance for advancing the cause of the party and the country in the new era, and for driving forward the historic process of great national rejuvenation. The participants all agree that with the CPC Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core charting the course and taking the helm, and with the solidarity of the whole party, whole military, and Chinese people, no obstacle or hardship is able to hold back the marching forward of the Chinese people, and no risk or challenge is able to hold back the historic process of the great national rejuvenation. The most important outcome of the plenary session is the consideration and adoption of the resolution on the major achievements and historical experience of the party over the past century. On the occasion of the centenary of our party, the Central Committee held its sixth plenary session to have a comprehensive summary of the major achievements and historical experience gained throughout the 100-year struggle. It is a solemn, historic, and strategic decision that reflects our party's high political awareness of attaching great importance to and fully applying the historical laws, and demonstrates our party's confidence and sense of responsibility in keeping to its founding mission and building on past achievements to usher in a new future. Over the course of the CPC's 100-year history, the seventh plenary session of the sixth Central Committee in 1945 formulated the resolution on certain issues in the history of the party, and the sixth plenary session of the 11th Central Committee formulated the resolution on certain questions in the history of our party since the founding of the PRC. The two resolutions are different in terms of their historical conditions and context and the issues they aim to address, but both are formulated at major historical junctures, and both have played an important role in advancing the cause of the party and the people. Now, 76 years have passed since the formulation of the first historical resolution, and 40 years have transpired since the second one. Over the past 4 decades, the cause of the party and country has greatly moved forward. So has the theory and practice of the party. Standing at a new historical starting point, to review the past and look into the future, and to have a comprehensive and systemic summary of the 100-year journey of the party, especially of the 40-plus years since the start of the reform and opening up, is both an objective necessity and has subjective conditions. The resolution adopted by the plenary session has 7 parts. Its content highlights 2 priorities. First, different from the previous 2 resolutions, which mainly summarize the historical lessons of the party and make a distinction between right and wrong, the resolution focuses on summarizing the major achievements and historical experience in the party's 100-year journey. The main consideration is that between the party's founding and the early days of reform and opening up, the major issues of right and wrong in the party's history have been basically settled by the previous 2 historical resolutions. The basic characterization and conclusions still apply today. Since the start of reform and opening up, despite some questions in the work of the party, overall, the cause of the party and country has had smooth development. The direction has been correct, and the achievements have been remarkable. The resolution's primary focus is summarizing the major achievements and historical experience of the party's 100-year struggle. This is in keeping with reality and will help to increase the wisdom, enhance solidarity, and boost confidence and morale across the party. Second, for the history of the party during the new democratic revolution and the period of socialist revolution and construction, the 2 previous resolutions have had a systemic summary. For the historical achievements and experience gained during the new historical period of reform and opening up, systemic summaries have been made on the 20th, 30th, and 40th anniversary of the third plenary session of the 11th CPC Central Committee. Thus, the resolution is focused on summarizing the historical achievements, the transformational practices, original thought, breakthrough, and signature achievements since the 18th CPC National Congress. This will better guide the whole party and Chinese people of all ethnic groups to reaffirm confidence, focus on what we are doing now, and embark on a new journey and make new contributions in the new era with greater pride. The Central Committee also made another important decision at the session. That is, the CPC will convene its 20th National Congress in Beijing in the second half of 2022. This Congress, which is to be held at an important time frame when the party has embarked on a new journey to build a modern socialist country in all respects and to realize the second centenary goal, will be a highly important meeting and will be an event of great political significance for both the party and the country. The plenary session called upon the party organizations at all levels and the entire party membership to rally more closely around the Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, to surmount difficulties, forge ahead so as to make new and greater contributions toward building a modern socialist country in all respects, securing great success for socialism with Chinese characteristics in the new era, and realizing the great national rejuvenation, and to ensure that excellent results are achieved by the time the 20th CPC National Congress is convened. The sixth plenary session of the 19th CPC Central Committee is one of major historical significance held at a major historical juncture. The resolution adopted at the session crystallizes the party's struggle, sacrifice, and creation over the past 100 years as it pursues the founding mission of seeking happiness for the Chinese people and rejuvenation for the Chinese nation. It lays out profound answers to the questions why we were successful in the past and how we can continue to succeed in the future. We're confident that this plenary session will have a major, far-reaching impact on enhancing the unity in thinking, will, and actions within the party, rallying the leading Chinese of all ethnic groups to learn from history, work hard, and forge ahead for a better future, and better upholding and developing socialism with Chinese characteristics in the new era. That concludes my briefing. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wang Xiaohui. Now, the floor is open to questions. Please identify your media affiliation before asking a question. We have many foreign reporters present today. The press conference is conducted with simultaneous interpretation. Questions raised in English will be interpreted consecutively into Chinese. With CCTV, according to the communique of the plenary session, establishing Comrade Xi Jinping's core position on the Party Central Committee and in the party as a whole, and defining the guiding role of the Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era is of decisive significance for the development of the cause of the party and for advancing the historic process of the great national rejuvenation. How are we to understand the decisive significance? I'm very glad to answer this question. Establishing Comrade Xi Jinping's core position on the Party Central Committee and in the party as a whole, and defining the guiding role of the Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era is of decisive significance for advancing the cause of the party and the country and in the new era, and for driving forward the historic process of national rejuvenation. There is sufficient basis in practice. That is, since the 18th CPC's National Congress, the historical achievements and transformations in the cause of the party and country are fundamentally a result of the CPC Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core charting the course and taking the helm, and the Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era guiding our way forward. That is the shared aspiration of the whole party and people. There is also sufficient basis in theory. That is, a strong leadership core and sound guiding theories are of fundamental importance to the future of the party and country and to the success of the cause of our party and people. For a country and a political party, the leadership core is of vital importance. Comrade Deng Xiaoping once keenly observed that any leading group should have a core, and leading without a core is unreliable. For a big party, which has a membership of over 95 million, and for China, a big country with 56 ethnic groups and 1.4 billion people, it would be unimaginable had there not been a core of the Party Central Committee and of the whole party. There will be a lack of cohesion, and nothing can be accomplished. Only when there is a core of the Party Central Committee and of the whole party can the party have strength. Since the 18th National Congress, General Secretary Xi Jinping, with profound care of the people, extraordinary political wisdom, and a strong sense of responsibility, has led the whole party and Chinese people across the country in taking the great historic initiative, opening the new era of socialism with Chinese characteristics, scoring historic achievements and transformations, and finishing the building of a moderately prosperous society in all respects on the vast land of China. General Secretary Xi, as the core of the party, leader of the people, and commander of the army, is well-deserved, and this represents the prevailing aspiration of the people. To establish General Secretary Xi's core position on the Party Central Committee and in the party as a whole is the call of the times, the choice of history, and the aspiration of the people. By firmly supporting and upholding General Secretary Xi's core position, the whole party will have an anchor, the entire Chinese people will have a backbone, and the giant vessel of China's rejuvenation will have a steady hand on the tiller. No matter what choppy waves we might encounter, we will always be able to stay calm and composed. Only when political parties follow sound theories can it embrace the power of truth. Only when a cause follows the guidance of sound theories can it enjoy a bright future. Over the past 100 years, our party has been able to accomplish the formidable tasks that other political forces are not able to, and secured one victory after another in the struggles against various political forces as well as difficulties and challenges. The fundamental reason is that we have adapted the basic principles of Marxism to the Chinese reality and to China's fine traditional culture, and continuously push forward innovation in theories, and are good at guiding new practices with new theories. Since the 18th National Congress, with a keen understanding of the dynamics and pulse of the times and staying on top of the trend, General Secretary Xi Jinping, with extraordinary courage in theory, has put forth a string of original strategic thoughts and innovative philosophy, and established the Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era. This important thought is the Marxism of contemporary China and of the 21st century. It embodies the best of the Chinese culture and ethos in our times, and has provided a solid guide to action for advancing the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. By establishing the guiding role of the Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, our party is able to, in the context of the complex and deep interplay of the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation and once in a century changes in the world, keep to the right direction, break waves, and stay on the right course, stay on top of the logic behind development, and plan the development of our cause, and address risks and challenges with a sound outlook of the world and methodology, and lead people to continuously open up brighter projects for the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation.
Xinhua News Agency. The communique pointed out that Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era achieved a new breakthrough in adapting Marxism to the Chinese context. How should we understand this new breakthrough? Mr. Wang Xiaohui, please. As we all know, the Communist Party of China is a party that attaches great importance to theoretical guidance. The new summarization and elaboration of Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era is a significant highlight of the resolution, as well as a major contribution of the plenum. As you may have noticed, the communique pointed out that Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era is contemporary Chinese Marxism and 21st century Marxism, and the essence of Chinese culture and Chinese spirit of our times. It achieved a new breakthrough in adapting Marxism to the Chinese context. I believe this was give a scientific elaboration on the theoretic content and major significance of Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, and mark its important position in the development history of Marxism and the development history of the Chinese culture. I think we can take the following three perspectives. First, this thought gives profound answer to the major questions of the new era. Since the 18th Party Congress, General Secretary Xi Jinping made deep-going consideration and scientific assessment on a series of major theoretical and practical issues concerning the development of the endeavors of the party and the country, thoroughly reviewed and fully applied the historical experience gained since the founding of the party, proceeded from the new realities, and gave profound answers to the major questions of our times, namely, what kind of socialism with Chinese characteristics we should uphold and develop in this new era, what kind of great modern socialist country we should build, and what kind of Marxist party exercising long-term governance we should develop, as well as how we should go about achieving these tasks. And founded Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era. This thought has given a lot of important guiding new ideas on Marxism and Marxist political economics, and realized a new elevation of Marxism, draws a new blueprint for China-style modernization path and broke new ground in party discipline and prosperity. Second, this thought puts forward a series of original new concepts, new thoughts, and new strategies in governance. The resolution on the basis of the 8 clear definitions laid out in the report to the 19th Party Congress put forward another 10 clear definitions as further summarization of the core content of the thought. The resolution also summarized the achievements of the endeavors of the party and the country in the new era in 13 sectors and highlighted the original thoughts. For example, on committing to socialism with Chinese characteristics, it expressed that leadership of the CPC is the most essential feature of socialism with Chinese characteristics and the biggest strength of the system of socialism with Chinese characteristics. Made the scientific assessment of the change of China's major social contradiction in the new era, stressed the importance to uphold and improve the system of socialism with Chinese characteristics and advance the modernization of the system and capacity of state governance, and on fully building a modern socialist country, it put forward the strategic arrangement of 2-step approach to fully building a great modern socialist country, stressed that China's modernization is about a large population, the common prosperity of all, coordination between material and cultural progresses, harmonious coexistence between man and nature, and a path of peaceful development. On comprehensively enforcing strict party discipline, it expressed that the key to running China's affairs well lies in the party and in party governance and comprehensive and strict party discipline, stressed that the party's political work should play the leading role, and underlined the need to profoundly advance anti-corruption struggle, implement the political responsibilities of party governance and discipline, and lead the great social revolution with the great self-reform. These strategic thoughts and innovative concepts give brand new perspectives into the laws governing the Communist Party's governance, development of socialism, and development of the human society, and are the latest outcomes of adapting Marxism to the Chinese context. Third, this thought is the essence of Chinese culture and the Chinese spirit of our times. Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era is deeply rooted in the Chinese culture, draws nutrition from the profound philosophical thoughts, humanist spirit, and moral ethics of all-covering fine traditional Chinese culture, and is a glorious example of a creative transformation and innovative development of the fine traditional Chinese culture. It deeply reflects the dreams and pursuits of the Chinese nation since ancient times, particularly the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation, the greatest dream since modern times. It is a crystallization of the Chinese people's great spirit of creation, great spirit of struggle, great spirit of solidarity, and great spirit of dream. It has powerful historical penetration force, cultural moving force, and spiritual inspiring force. Effectively activated the vitality of fine traditional Chinese culture and breathed new vitality into Marxism on the vast land of China. In short, Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era features complete system, rigorous features a combination of major theoretical outcomes of Marxism with Chinese realities and fine traditional Chinese culture, an important theoretical crystallization of the party's historical achievements and historical transformations since the 18th National Congress, and realized the historical leap and creative elevation of adapting Marxism to the Chinese context.
谢谢主持人。日本电视报记者提问。在六中全会中审议通过了中共中央关于
Nippon News Network.
重大成就和历史经验的
The resolution on the major achievements and historical experience of the party over the past century was deliberated and adopted at the 6th plenum. What is the significance of the 6th plenum's deliberation on this resolution? What would be the influence? Mr. Ju Jingshan, please.
记者朋友好，我来回答这个问题。
Thank you, and I will take this question.
19届六中全会通过的决议，是在我们党
The
成立
resolution
100周年的这个重要历史时刻，
deliberated and adopted by the 6th plenum of the 19th CPC Central Committee at an important historical moment of the party's 100th anniversary and an important historical juncture of the party uniting and leading the people to successfully complete the first centenary goal and complete the building of a moderately prosperous society in all respects, and marching toward the second centenary goal of fully building a great modern socialist country.
重大历史关头做出的决议，集中了全党的智
The
慧，
resolution reflects the wisdom of the entire party,
全面系统地总结了
gives a comprehensive review
百年奋斗的
of the major
重大
achievements
成就和历史
and
经验，
historical experience of the party over the past
特别
century,
是着重阐述
particularly
了
of the
党的18大以来
historical achievements
党和国
and
家事
historical
业
transformation in the
取得
endeavors
的
of the
历史
party
性成就
and the
发生
country
的历史性变革，
since the 18th Party Congress,
这就充分地彰显了
fully
我们党的
demonstrating
高超的
the
政
party's
治智慧
superior political wisdom
和
and
责任担当，
sense of responsibility,
充分地彰显了
and
我们党的
the party's
高度
high
的历
level
史自觉和
of
历史自信。
historical awareness and historical confidence.
我们党是一个高
Our
度
party
重视
is
总结历
a
史经验，
Marxist political party that sets great store by and excels at summarizing historical experience.
你看，每当历史的重要时刻，
At every important historical moment and major historical
我
juncture,
们党都要
our party
回顾历史，
reviews the history,
总结经验，
summarizes experience,
从历史中汲取
and draws wisdom and strength from history for future progress.
刚才小辉先
Just
生
now,
向
as
大
was
家
mentioned
通报了
by
情况，
Minister Wang,
讲到了在我们党的100年历史上，
he mentioned that in the
曾
party's
经先后
century-long
在
history,
1945年制定了
in 1945, the party formulated the resolution on
在
several historical
1981年制
issues,
定了
and in 1981, the resolution on several historical issues since the founding of the People's Republic of China.
这2个历史的决议，都在我们
Two
党的历史
resolutions
上
that played
对推进和引领
important
党的
roles
事业的发展
in advancing and guiding the endeavors of the party.
那么这一次全会通过的这个决议，
And the
可以
resolution
说是我
adopted
们
at
党的
this
历史上
plenum
的第3个历史决议。
is the third historical
我认为
resolution of the party.
这个决议同党做出的前2个历史决议一样，
And I believe, just like the
它
previous
必将
two
为
resolutions,
推动全党统一思想、统一意
will
志、
play an important role
统一
in
行动，
helping
团结
uniting
带领全国各
the
族人民
theory,
以史为
will,
鉴，
and action
开创未
of the
来，
party,
埋头苦干，勇于前行，
learning the experience from the
在新时代
history
坚持和
to
发展中国特色社会主
achieve
义，
future progress,
实现中华民族伟大复兴，将产生重
and
大
in
而深远
realizing
的
the
意义。
second centenary goal and the Chinese dream of great national rejuvenation.
我们给它一个总的评价和定位，
If I were to give the resolution an overall assessment and
我们可以
positioning,
概括地讲3句话。
maybe I can do that in 3 sentences.
决议是一篇
First,
马克思主义的纲领性文献。
it is a guideline document of Marxism.
第二，
Second,
决议是新时代中国共产党人牢记初心使命，
it is a political proclamation of the Chinese communists, staying committed to the original aspiration and founding mission and upholding and developing socialism with Chinese characteristics in the new era.
开创未来，实现
And
中华
third,
民
it is
族
the
伟大
action
复
guide on
兴
learning from history to
的
create a
行
bright
动指
future
南。
and realizing the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation.
如果进一步的具体的说，
To be more specific,
我想呢，决议具有以
I
下
think the
重
resolution
大意义，
has the following
将会产生以下
profound
深
and
刻的广
far-reaching
泛的社会影响。
significance
想
and
3点。
impacts. Let me share with you
一是
3 points.
决议深刻总结我们党
The resolution makes
100年来
in-depth summarization of the great journey of the party, uniting and leading the people from one victory to another over the past
教育
century,
引导
educates
全
and
党
guides the entire party
深刻认识
to have a profound understanding
红色政权来之不易，
of the challenges we
新中
overcame
国来之不易，
for the Red regime, for
中
New
国特色
China,
社会主义来
and
之
for
不易，
socialism with Chinese characteristics,
增强我们继
and
续前
enhances
进
the
的
courage
勇气和
and
力量。
strength to continue to march forward.
在新的征程上，
On the new journey,
我们既
we
面
face
临着难得的
both
发展机遇，
rare
也面临
development
着许多
opportunities
严峻复杂
and
的
many severe
风险和挑
and
战，
complex risks and
这就
challenges,
需要我们
which require
用
us
党的重大成就
to
和历
use
史
the
经
party's
验，
major achievements and historical experience to boost morale, chart the course, pull strength, and firm up conviction,
以往无前的奋斗姿态，
uphold and develop socialism with
继
Chinese
续坚持和发展
characteristics
中国特色社会主
with
义，
unmatched enthusiasm
奋力夺取
and strive to secure
全面
a
建
new
设社会
victory
主义现代化
in
国家的新
fully
胜利。
building a modern socialist country.
二是
Second,
决议深刻总结了
The
我们
resolution
党
makes in-depth
从
summarization
小到大、从弱到
of the
强
growth
的
trajectory
成长
of
历
the
程，
party from infancy to
教育
what
引
it
导
is
全
now
党
in 100 years, educates
要
and
深刻地
guides the
认识
entire party to have a
加强
profound
党的
understanding
政治建设的重要
of the
性，
importance of enhancing the party's
增
political
强
work,
全党团
enhances
结统
the
一的自
commitment
觉性和坚定性。
and awareness of upholding the party's
在
solidarity
新的
and
征程
unity.
上，
On the new journey,
我们要实现第二个百年奋斗目标
to，realize the second
需要
centenary
我们坚
goal,
持和
we
发
must
扬
uphold and carry
维护
forward
党中央权威
the historical
和集中
experience
统
of
一领
upholding
导
the
的历
Central
史经
Committee's
验，
authority and its centralized
特
unified
别是党
leadership,
的18大以
particularly
来
the new
的
experience
新选
since the
经验，
18th Party Congress,
增强四个意识，
strengthen our consciousness of the need to maintain political integrity, think in big picture terms, follow the leadership core, and keep in alignment with the Central Party leadership, enhance our confidence in the path, theory, system, and culture, resolutely uphold Comrade Xi Jinping's core position on the Central Committee and in the party as a whole, and uphold the Central Committee's authority and its centralized unified leadership. Under the strong leadership of the CPC Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at the core, we will rally the entire party like a piece of unbreakable iron and march forward in lockstep.
三是
Third,
决议深
the
刻总
resolution
结了
makes
我们党
in-depth summarization of the party's
加强自身
vivid
建
practice
设，
over the past 100
推进
years
自我
in
革
strengthening
命的
developing
伟
itself
大
and
实
advancing
践，
self-reform,
教育引导全党
educates and
深刻
guides
地
the
认识
entire party to have a
全面
profound understanding of the
从严治
importance
党
of
的重
comprehensively
要性
strengthening
和
party
必要性，
discipline,
确保我们党始终成
and
为
ensures that our
中国
party
特色
always
社会主
remains
义事业的
the
坚
strong
强
leadership
领导
core
核
of the
心。
endeavor of socialism with Chinese
在
characteristics.
新的征程上，
On the new journey,
赶考远未
the
结束，
exam is far from being
全
finished,
党任重道远。
and the party has a long way to go.
这就需要我们深刻的汲取
We must draw historical
党加强
experience
自身建
from
设，
the party's efforts to strengthening
保持
self-development,
先进性、
maintaining the
团
God
结性，
nature and
提
purity,
高领导
and
水平和
raising
执政
leadership
水
level
平的
and
历
governance
史经验，
capacity,
不断的提高
keep elevating the
党
party's
应对各种风险挑战的
capacity to
能
respond
力、
to
永
risks
保
and
党的
challenges,
生机和活力，团结带领
maintain
全国
vigor
各
and
族人民，
vitality, uniting and leading the people of all ethnic groups in making continued
而
efforts
继
to
续地
realize
奋
the
斗。
Chinese dream of national
这个问题我
rejuvenation.
就回答到这里。
So
谢
this
谢
is my answer to your
请继续
question.
提问。
Thank you.
中区第4排这位女士。
谢谢。光明日报记者提问：从全会公报
From
中
Guangming
看到
Daily,
总结
we
新
can
时代
see
成就
that
和
when
经验
reviewing the
时，
achievements
对文
and
化建
experience
设
of the new
单独做
era,
了总结
the，communique
强调
dedicated
党
a
的
part of
18
it
大以来，
specifically
我国
to
意
the
识形
development
态
of
领域
culture,
形势发生
emphasizing
全体
that
性、
there has
根
been
本
a
性
sweeping and
转变，
fundamental shift
全
in the
党、
ideological
全国
domain,
各族人
a
民
notable
文
boost
化
in
自信
confidence
明
in our
显
culture
增
among
强
all。party
请
members
介绍一下
and Chinese
这方
people.
面的有关
Could you
情况。
elaborate on that?
我们请王晓辉先生回答。
这个众所周知啊，文化是一个国家、
As we know,
一个民族的灵魂。
Culture is the soul of a
应该
country
说，党的
and
18
a
大以
nation.
来，
Since the 18th National
以习
Congress,
近平同志为核心的党
the
中央
CPC
高
Central
度重
Committee,
视文
with
化
Comrade
建设，
Xi Jinping at its core,
特别
has
是把
placed
文化
high
自信
importance on the
和
development
道
of
路自
culture.
信、理
It
论
has
自信
juxtaposed
制度自
confidence in
信
culture
并列
with
为中国
confidence
特
in
色社
path,
会主义的
theory,
4个自信
and。system, characterizing them
紧紧
as
围绕建
confidence
设
in
社
four
会主义文
aspects.
化强国这个目
With a
标，
view to building a socialist
围绕
country
举
strong in
旗
its
帜、
culture,
聚民
that
心、
strives to
育
hold the
新
banner,
人、
rally the
兴
people,
文化、展
cultivate
形
the new
象的
generation,
使命任
develop
务
the culture, and present
推
a
动文化
better
建设
image.
取得了
Historic
重大的
achievements
历史
have
性
been
成
made
就。
in cultural development.
如果梳理一下
More
进入新时
specifically,
代文化建设的成就，
there are a few points
我觉得
I'd
主要
like
包括
to
这么几个方面。
highlight.
第一， 习近平新时代
First,
中国特色社
Xi
会主义
Jinping's
思
thought
想
on
深入人
socialism
心。
with Chinese characteristics for a
我
new
们始
era
终坚
has
持
increased
马
in
克思
public
主义
appeal.
在意识
We have
形态
stayed
领域指
committed
导地
to
位这一
Marxism as a
根本
guiding
制度，
ideology, which is
这也
of
是我们
fundamental
文化领域的根本
importance
制度。
in our cultural
我们
sector.
深入开展习近平新
For
时
more
代中
in-depth
国特色
study
社会主义思
of
想的
Xi
学习
Jinping's
教育，
thought on socialism with Chinese
编辑出
characteristics for a
版
new
习
era,
近平
we have
谈治国
edited
理政
and published books
习
and
近平
additional
新时
readings
代中
including
国特色
Xi
社会主义
Jinping,
思
The
想学
Governance
习
of
纲
China,
要和学习
Study
问答
Outline, and
等一系
Question
列
and
的
Answers
权
on
威
Xi
著
Jinping's
作
thought
和
on
辅导读
socialism
本，
with Chinese characteristics
建
for
好
a new
用好
era.
新时代
We
文
have
明实
built
践中
and made
心
good use of
县级
centers for
融媒体
cultural
中心
development in the new
和
era,
学习强国学习
county-level
平台，
media convergence centers,
坚持不
and the
懈用
platforms
科学
such
理论
as
武装全党，
学习.cn,
教
also
育人
known
民。
as 学习强国.
广大干部
We
群
continue to
众
arm the whole
对这
party
一思
with
想
and
理解
introduce our
更加
people
深入，
to sound
践
theories
行
which have
也更加
helped
自觉。
government officials and the general public
第二，
gain a
主
deeper
流思想
understanding of
舆
this
论
thought
持
and
续
encourage
巩
them
固
to
壮
act
大。
accordingly.
我们坚持
Second,
团结稳定古今，
Mainstream
正面
thoughts and
共同为
narratives
主。
continue to be
围
consolidated and
绕中国
amplified.
共产
We are
党成立
committed
100
to
周
unity
年
and， stability, to
中华
making
人民共和
encouragements
国
and
成立
focusing on
70周年，
communicating positive
改革
elements.
开放
On the occasion
40
of
周
historic
年等
junctures
重
such as
大
the
历史节
centenary
点
of the founding of CPC,
隆重
the
组织
70th
系列
anniversary of
庆
the
祝和纪
establishment
念活
of the
动，
PRC, and the 40th
聚焦
anniversary
决
of
胜
reform
全
and
面建
opening
成
up.
小康
We
社会，
organize a series of
决胜
celebratory
脱贫
and
攻坚，
commemorative events.
抗击
We have
新
poured our
冠肺
heart
炎疫
into
情
covering and
等
highlighting
重大
major
决策部
decisions
署，
regarding the building of
精
a
心组织系列
moderately
的
prosperous
重大
society,
主题宣
poverty
传，
alleviation, and
在
COVID
全党
response,
全社会
in an
营
effort
造了
to
爱党、
create a
爱
social
国、爱
atmosphere
社会
where
主义的
love of the
浓厚
love
氛
of the
围。
party, love of the country, and love of
第三
socialism
是社会主义
prevails.
核心价值观
Third,
广为弘扬。
Core socialist
我
values
们坚
have
持
been
以社会
carried
主义核
forward.
心价值观引领文化建设，
Development of culture
广
is
泛开
guided
展中
by
国特
core
色社会主
socialist
义和
values.
中
We
国
have
梦的
championed
宣传教育，
socialism with
持
Chinese
续深化
characteristics
群
and
众
the
性
Chinese
英雄文
dream,
明创建，
deepened the campaign
大
to
力培
improve
育时代新
public
人，
etiquette
弘
and
扬
ethical
时代新
standards,
风，
work to cultivate the
特
new
别注重
generation
发挥
and promote
榜样
good
引
and
领作用，
up-to-date practices and
为
trends.
英雄模范
In an
颁
effort
授
to set
党和
better
国家功
examples,
勋荣
we have
誉，
awarded heroes and role
评选
models
表彰一
with
大
party
批
or state
道德
honors,
模范、
recognized
时
a
代
group of
楷
role
模
models of the
和最美
times
人
of
物，
moral high standards
形成了
and
见
applauded
贤
them
思齐、
as the most
宠
beautiful
德向
people.
善、
By
争
doing so,
当
we
先
have
锋的
shaped a
良好
good
的
environment
社会风尚。
where role models are
第
emulated,
四，
moral
人民
standards
群众文化
elevated,
需求
and more
得
people
到
step
更好
forward
满
to
足。
become vanguards.
我们坚
Fourth,
持以人
people's
民为
cultural
中心
needs
的
are
工
better
作导
met.
向，
With a
大
people-centered
力繁
approach,
荣
we
文艺创
endeavor
作，
to promote the growth of
先后
art and
推出了电
literature.
影《我
A
和我
number
的
of
祖国》、
popular movies
长
and
津湖、
TV series were
电
filmed,
视剧
including
《觉
My
醒
People,
年
My
代》、
Country,
山海
The
情
Battle at
等一
Lake
批
Changjin,
精品力
The
作。
Age of Awakening, and
我
Minning
们积
Town.
极推进城乡
Efforts are
公
also
共文
made
化服务
to
体
advance
系
both
一体化
urban
建设，
and rural public cultural
深入实
services,
施文化惠民
delivering
工程，
benefits to the people
推
through
动
cultural
中华优
development.
秀传统文化创造性转
We
化、
have taken
创
creative
新性
steps
发
to
展，
adapt and develop
建设长
traditional
城、
Chinese
大
culture
运
by
河、
building national
长
cultural
征、
parks on the
黄
basis
河
of or
等
inspired
国家
by the
文化
Great
公
Wall,
园，
the Grand Canal,
为人民
the
群
Long
众
March,
提供了
and the
更
Yellow
为
River,
丰富、
etc.
更有
All
营养
these
的
have
精神
provided
食
the
粮。
people with more substantive
第
and
五，
multidimensional
可
cultural
信、
experiences.
可爱、可
Fifth,
庆的、
China is
可敬的
presented
中
as
国
more
形象
credible,
更加鲜
lovable,
亮。
and respectable.
我们加强对外文化
To
交流
strengthen
和
exchanges
多层次
and
文明对
multi-layered
话，
civilizational
举
dialogues
办
with the
亚洲
world,
文明对话大
we have
会，
convened the
开
Conference
展
on
中
Dialogue
国
of
文
Asian
化年、
Civilizations,
旅游年、
organized events
感知
such
中
as
国、
China
欢
Year
乐
of
春
Culture,
节、
Year of
经
Tourism,
典著作故
Understanding
意
China,
等活
Happy
动，
Spring Festival,
积
and
极构
translation
建
of
多主
classic
体、
works. We have
立
worked actively to advance multidimensional external communications supported by various pillars. We have promoted cultural exchanges and people-to-people connectivity. We are committed to presenting well China's stories to the world and making its voice heard, which have helped enhance China's impact in the global discourse. The plenary session fully recognized what we have achieved in cultural development and ideological work. It pointed out that since the 18th National Congress, there has been a sweeping and fundamental shift in the ideological domain, a notable boost in confidence in our culture among all party members and Chinese people, and a major increase in cohesiveness throughout society. All of this has provided solid ideological guarantees and powerful inspiration for opening up new horizons for the cause of the party and the country in the new era. Thank you.
请第3排这位女士。
谢谢主持人，我是凤凰卫视记者。中国提出发展
Phoenix
全过程
TV,
人民
China
民
has
主，
put forward
那么西方
developing
向
whole
来是
process
以党
people's
派制衡、
democracy.
全
The
民投
West
票
tend to
来检验
assess
民主。
democracy
那么
through
中国提出
multi-party
的全
check
过
and
程人
balance
民民
and
主是
universal
如何来
suffrage.
检验
As for
其中的
China's
民
whole
主含
process,
量的呢？
people's democracy,
另外呢，
how
中
is
国
the
已
degree
经
of
将实
democracy
现共同富裕
tested?
正
To
式的
realize
提上
common
了日程。
prosperity is
那么
now
目
officially
前
on the
中国经
agenda.
济增速
Given the
正在放
slowing
缓，
economy
它是
of
不是会
China,
对
will
实
there
现
be
共同富裕来
challenges
带
to
来挑
realizing
战？
common
那中国
prosperity
在经济
under
增长压力的
growth
情况下
pressures?
如何来
How
实
will
现
China
共同富
realize
裕
common
呢？谢谢。
prosperity? Thank you.
您的问题涉及到2个方面，建议分别由
Your question
江
is
金
in
泉
two
先生
folds. I
和
will
韩文
suggest
秀
that
先
Mr.
生
Jiang
做回
Jingquan
答。
and Mr. Han Wenxiu will take your question respectively.
这个发展全过程人民民主啊，是习近平总书记总结中国民
To
主政
develop
治建设的
process
实践
people's democracy
提出的一个重大命
is
题。
a proposal put forward
这次
by
强会
General
文件呢
Secretary Xi
也写
Jinping
进
on
了
the basis of
这个
summarization of the practice of
内
the
容。
development
这个问题
of
是一
the
个很好
system
的问
of
题，我很
China.
愿
I
意
think this is
和
a
记
very
者
good
们
question
记者
that
朋
you
友们一
raised,
起来
and I
分
will
享我的
be
看
more
法。
than happy to share with you my views.
民主啊，是全人类的共同价值，
Democracy is a common
也是
value of
中国
all
共产党
humanity
和中国人民
and a long-standing
始终
important
坚持的重要理
commitment
念。
of the CPC and the Chinese
我们
people.
党从成立起
Since the
就
founding
始
of the
终高
party,
人民民主的
it
旗
has
帜。
always upheld the banner of people's
我们党
democracy.
从国内外政治
Our
发展
party
得
has
失中
learned from the success, failure,
深刻认识到，
gain, and loss of
中国的
domestic
政治
and
文
foreign
明
political
和政治
developments
制度
that China's political
必须深深扎根于中国社会土壤。
civilization and political system must be deeply rooted in the land of the Chinese society, and that simple duplication of other countries'
甚至
political
会
systems
把国家
cannot
全
work
都
and
命运
even risk
葬送掉，
ruining the future
民主
of the country.
不是西方国家的专利，
Democracy is
更
not
不能由西方国家来定
an
义。
exclusive patent
自说
of
自话。
Western countries, and even less should it be
民主的本意
defined or
是人民
dictated
当家
by
作主。
Western countries. Democracy is all about
一
the
些西方
people
国家所
ruling the
引以
country.
为傲的选举民主，实际上
The
是资本
electoral
支配的选
democracy
举，
of Western
是资
countries
本
are
集团
actually
的游戏，
democracy
是有钱人的
ruled
民主，
by
不是
the
真民主。
capital, and they are a game of the rich, not real
同
democracy.
时，世界上民主样式
At the
不
same
可能千
time,
篇一律。
democratic
即使
models of the world
是
cannot
西方
be
国
the
之间，
same.
它
Even
的
the
民主制
democratic
度、
forms of
民主
Western
形式
countries
也不是完
are
全相
not
同的。
entirely identical.
用单一的标尺
The
来
practice
衡
to
量
measure
世
the
界
world's
丰富多
diverse
彩的政
political
治制度，
system with a unified yardstick
用单调的眼
and
光
judge the
审视
humanity's
人类
colorful
五彩缤
political
纷的政治
civilization
文
with
明
a simplistic
本身
perspective
就是不民
is
主的。
in itself undemocratic.
只是说哪个国家的民主好，
As for which country's
哪个国
democracy
家的民
is
主不
good
好，
or bad,
各国人民
the people living
有直接
in
的感
that
受，
country has the most
最有发言
direct
权，
feeling and
而不应
say.
该由外部少数人
And this is not
指手
something
画
to
脚
be
来
judged
评判。
by a handful of people from other countries.
有些西方国家民主呈现了空心化的烂象。
Some Western countries are seeing their
都越来越不
democracy
满，
being hollowed out and their people
说肆意
becoming
的
more
把自己
and
的
more
所谓民主模式
dissatisfied,
要强加给别的
while
国家，
wantonly impose their
造
democratic
成
model on
水
other
土不
countries
服。
and
前
brought
些年的颜色革命呢，带来一些国家
intense
水土不服
sufferings to the people there, like the color
给相关国
revolutions
家人民造成
that
深重灾难和
happened in
痛苦。
previous years.
世界人民已经看得越来越清
This
楚
is
了。
becoming more and more clear to people all over the world.
媒体记者们可能注意到了最近几个数据。
There have been some numbers that you may
美国
have
广播公
taken
司
note of.
公布了最新民调结果，
The ABC released a
全
latest
球
opinion poll showing
57%的
that
受访者，
50% of
72%
interviewees
受访者
globally
认
and
为
72% in the
美国不
US
再是民主的良好
believe that the
样貌。
US is no longer a good
也是美国的
democratic
另一项民意调查结果显
paradigm.
示，
Another opinion poll
超过
in the US shows
81%的
that
美国
over
民众
81% of
对美国
Americans
民主
are worried
表示担忧。
about US democracy.
与此形成鲜明对比的是，
In stark
也是美
comparison,
国民调机构最新的两个调查结果，
two latest opinion polls by the
中国
US
民众对
showed
中国党
that
和政府的满意度分别为95%、98%。
The Chinese people have a 95% satisfactory rate for the party and 98% satisfaction for the government. Any clear-eyed people will find it easy to draw a conclusion. Recently, the U.S. put together a so-called Summit for Democracy with an attempt to revitalize Western democracy. To convene such a summit against the backdrop of the loads of problems in Western democracy is such an irony. To convene such a summit against the backdrop of the loads of problems in Western democracy is just... The intention is nothing but bashing other countries and dividing the world, which cannot be achieved. To this, the CPC and the Chinese people have always remained level-headed. We actively learn from all beneficial outcomes of human civilization and welcome all helpful advice and kind criticisms, but will never accept condescending lecturing. Democracy is not an ornament used just for decorative purposes. Rather, democracy is about solving issues faced by the people. In judging whether a country is democratic or not, it is important to see whether the country is truly run by the people, whether the people have the right to vote, and more importantly, whether they have the right to extensive participation. It is important to see what promises are made to the people in the electoral process, and more importantly, how many of those promises are delivered afterwards. It is important to see what political procedures and rules are instituted by a country's systems and laws, and more importantly, whether these systems and laws are truly executed. It is important to see whether the rules and procedures governing the exercise of power are democratic, and more importantly, whether power is truly under oversight and checks by the people. If the people of a country are only called upon to vote and are forgotten once they have cast their votes, or if the people only hear high-sounding promises during an election campaign and yet have no say whatsoever afterwards, or if the people are wooed to get their votes and are ignored once voting is over, then such democracy is not true democracy. To develop democratic political system of socialism is a long commitment of the CPC. Since the 18th Party's Congress, the CPC Central Committee, with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, has remained committed to the political development path of socialism with Chinese characteristics and to the integrated advances in party leadership, the running of the country by the people, and law-based governance, resisted the erosion of the so-called Western constitutional governance, multi-party rotation, and separation of powers, and embarked on a democratic path of developing whole process people's democracy. China's whole process people's democracy is a complete systemic chain, including electoral democracy, coordination democracy, social democracy, primary level democracy, citizen democracy, and all other elements of democratic politics. It covers democratic election, democratic consultation, democratic decision-making, democratic management, democratic supervision, and all other fields of the democratic process. China's whole process people's democracy is based not only on a full range of institutions and procedures, but also on full participation and practice. It is a democracy of both process and outcome, both procedure and substance. It is both direct and indirect democracy. It is people's democracy in nature and at the same time represents the will of the state. It involves all links of the process and covers all aspects of public life for the entire population. It is the most broad-based, genuine, and effective socialist democracy. With diverse, smooth, and orderly democratic channels, it effectively guarantees the whole population's management of state, social, economic, and cultural affairs through various ways and forms. The Chinese people have a high level of political and systemic confidence, and the fundamental reason is that China's whole process people's democracy is a democracy that has a high volume of democracy and rich content of democracy and is deeply welcomed by the Chinese people. And this is true people's democracy. Thank you. On common prosperity, General Secretary Xi Jinping pointed out that we need to advance common prosperity in the course of high-quality development. This points the way for realizing common common
推动
prosperity.
共同富裕，解决发展问题是第一
To
位的，
advance common prosperity,
分配问
resolving
题
development
也
issues
很重要，但不能
comes first, and
仅仅
distribution is
靠
also important,
分
but
配
we cannot
来实现
rely
共同富裕。
on distribution
我国
only
人
to
均
realize common
国内
prosperity.
生产总值虽然已经超
China's
过
per capita
1万美
GDP has
元，
exceeded
但还没有
$10,000 US
达到
dollars,
高收入
but
国
has
家
yet
的水
to
平。
reach
即使
high-income
把
countries'
现在
levels.
所有的国民收
Even
入
if all
全
wealth
部
is
平均
equally
分配，
redistributed, we can
也
still
还
not
达不到
realize common
共同富裕。
prosperity.
共同富裕没有捷径，
To achieve common
不是
prosperity,
变
there is
戏法，
no shortcut
必须
or
靠
magic.
14亿
We
多
must
中国
rely
人
on
民
the hard
艰
work
苦
of
奋
the
斗来
1.4
实
billion
现。
plus Chinese people.
第一呢，推动共同富裕啊，需要实现
First,
高
common
质量发展。
prosperity requires high-quality
我
development.
国仍然是世界上最
China
大的发
remains
展
the
中国
world's
家，
largest developing country
我们仍然
and
要用
still
发展的
needs
办法
to use development
解决
to tackle
前进
the
中的问题。
challenges ahead.
新时代的发
But
展
development
必须
in the
完整
new
准确
era
全面
should
贯彻新发展理念，
be
实现
something
高质量
that
发
is
展。
based on the full,
要
accurate,
增
and
强发展
faithful
的平衡性、
implementation of the
协调性
new
包容
development
性，持续
philosophy.
缩小城乡
We must
区域发
put the
展差
people
距，从源头上
We
打好
must make
共同富裕
development
的
more
基础。
balanced, coordinated, and
要
inclusive,
坚持
narrow
以
urban,
人
rural,
民
and
为中
interregional
心的发
gaps,
展
and lay a
思想，
solid foundation
保
for
障人
common
民
prosperity
在
from the source.
参
We
与
must
发
put the
展
people
中
first,
机会公
guarantee
平、
people's
规则
equality
公
of
平、权
opportunities,
利
rules,
公
and
平，
rights in
共
participating
同
in
创造社会
development,
财富，
jointly
共
create
同
social
分享
wealth,
发
and
展成
jointly
果。
share development
可以说，
outcomes.
推动高
It
质
can
量
be
发展的
said
过程，就
that
是
the
解
process of
决
advancing
发展不
high-quality
平衡、
development
不
is
充
a
分、
process of
这
addressing the
一
main contradiction
主要
of
矛盾的
unbalanced
过程，
and inadequate
是提
development,
高中等收入者比重，
raising the
优
share
化分配结构的过
of
程，
middle-income
是
population
促进人的
and
全面发展，
optimizing
推动共
distribution
同富裕
structure
的
and
过程。
promoting the overall development of
那
the
么去年
people
以
and
来
advancing common
面对
prosperity.
新冠肺炎疫情的冲击，
Since last year, faced with
中国率先
COVID-19, China
恢复经济
led the
增长，
pack to regain
如期
economic
完
growth,
成脱贫
completed
攻坚任务，
the building
全
of
面
a
建设
moderately
小康社
prosperous
会，
society in all
展
respects
现了
as
中国经
scheduled,
济的
completed the
强
task of
劲韧性。
eradicating extreme poverty,
经济波动啊，
and
是短
demonstrated
期
the
现象，
strong
共同富裕
resilience of the
是
Chinese
长
economy.
期目标。
Economic fluctuations
中
are
国经济
short-term
拥有
phenomena,
健
and
康
common
的基
prosperity
本
is a
面，
long-term goal. The
巨
Chinese
大
economy
的
has found
内需
fundamentals
潜力
sufficient
和发展空间，
and
完全能够
strong
实现长
space
期持续
for
健
development
康发
and
展，
position, and is
为
well
扎实
positioned
推动
to
共同富裕
underpin
提供更为雄
long-term
厚的
sustained and
物质基
sound
础。
development and provide strong material foundation
第
for
二呢，
solid
推动共
progress
同
in
富裕
realizing
需
common
要构
prosperity.
建体现
Second,
效率、
Common
促进
prosperity
公平
required
的
building
收
an
入分
income
配体
distribution
系。
system of efficiency as well
初次分
as
配对于
fairness.
最终分
Primary
配格局的
distribution plays
形
a
成
fundamental
具
role
有
in the formation of
基
the
础性
final
作用。
distribution layout.
要坚
We
持
must
按
uphold
照
the
分
approach of
配为主
work-based
体，多
distribution
种
as
分
the
配方
mainstay
式
and
并存，
coexistence of multiple
激励
distribution
引导
methods
社会
and
成员
incentivize and
通过
mobilize the public
诚实
to
劳
get
动
rich through
和
honest work and
创新
innovation
创业
and
富裕起来。
entrepreneurship.
初次分配既要
Primary
讲
distribution
效率，
must be both
又要
efficient
讲
and
公
be
平，
fair.
要规范
We
分
should
配秩
regulate
序，
distribution
合理
order
控
and
制
control primary
初始
distribution
分配
gap
差距。
as appropriate.
再分配要增
Redistribution
强
should
对分
enhance
配
its
差距
function
的
of
调节
adjusting
功能，
distribution gap
通过完善
and
税
better
收制度，
leverage this
提高
function by
直接税
improving
比重，
taxation regime,
加强
raising the
税
share
收
of
征管，
direct tax,
更好地发挥收入
and
调节的功
strengthening
能。
taxation
同
supervision.
时啊，还
At
要
the
健
same
全
time,
社会保
it
障
is
体
important
系，
to improve
完
the
善
social
转移支
security
付制度，
system,
加
enhance
大对
transfer
低
payment
收入者
system, step
和
up support
困
and
难地区
assistance
的
for
支
low-incomers
持
and
帮助，
regions with
更好地
difficulties,
发挥兜底。
better leverage
提
institutions
低的
providing
作
for
用，
basic
努力
needs,
使橄
and
榄形
strive
分配结
to
构
make the olive-shaped
两
distribution
头
structure
更小一些，
smaller
中
toward
间
the tips
更
and
大一些。
bigger toward the middle.
再分配呢，也要处理好效率和公平
Redistribution
的
should
关
also
系，
strike a
既促
balance
进公
between
平，又
efficiency
考
and
虑效率
fairness. It
防
should
止
both advance fairness and
失
accommodate efficiency and
总
should
之啊，
not ignore either. All in all, we should make institutional arrangements combining primary, secondary, and tertiary distribution systems. We need to divide the pie well and make the pie bigger. Third, common prosperity requires enterprises to do their own things well. Entrepreneurs have multiple ways and means to contribute to common prosperity, the most basic of which is to operate lawfully and honestly, pay taxes according to regulations, perform social responsibilities, treat employees and customers well, protect the lawful rights and interests of consumers, run their businesses well, and create wealth for the society. This is what running a business is all about, and also the right way to contribute to common prosperity. At the same time, the country encourages businesses and entrepreneurs to, where they have the wish and capacity, actively participate in public welfare and charity endeavors, which effectively plays a role in tertiary distribution. As China's businesses grow and more people get rich, coupled with better policy incentives of the country, China's public welfare and charity endeavor will see a huge progress. That said, charity and donation is voluntary. We must not opt for the Robin Hood approach, which could end up in a lose-lose scenario, and we should avoid forced donations, as that would run counter to the original intention of common prosperity. Thank you.
好，请东区第3排那位女士。
Thank you. Question from CNA. A recent study into China's Belt and Road Initiative has found that several projects in developing countries have met with implementation problems. Some of the reasons cited for this include debt and environmental hazards. And now we've also seen the US and Europe announce their own infrastructure initiatives. I would like to ask, with this regard, how has that changed the Belt and Road Initiative in China's overall development plan? Thank you.
亚洲新闻台最近一项针对中国“一带一路”倡议的研究发现，一些发展中国家的项目面临着实施问题。报告中提到的一些原因包括债务和环境风险。目前，美国和欧洲也宣布了自己的基础设施计划。鉴于这些情况，“一带一路”倡议在中国总体发展规划中的角色是否发生了变化？
我们继续请韩文秀先生回答。
We'll have Mr. Han Wen-xiu to answer this question.
谢谢你的提问。
Thank you.
习近平主席提出共建“一带一路”重大倡议，到现在呢已经有8年的时间。
8 years have passed since President Xi Jinping put forward the major Belt and Road Initiative. What has happened fully demonstrates that the BRI has become the world's most popular international public good and platform for international cooperation. As of 2020, China's cumulative trade with Belt and Road partner countries had exceeded $9.2 trillion, and investment stock in these countries was close to $140 billion. Major projects such as the China-Laos Railway and Jakarta-Bandung high-speed rail are making steady progress, bringing tangible to the local people and demonstrating China's strong capacity and efficiency in engineering and construction. Belt and Road Cooperation has made important contributions to combating COVID-19 and reviving the global economy. By far, China has provided more than 1.7 billion doses of COVID vaccines to over 110 countries and international organizations, most of which are Belt and Road partner countries. Since 2020, the China-Europe freight trains have surged against the odds, running about 1,000 services on a monthly basis. A total of 25,000 cargo trains have shuttled between China and Europe, transporting over 2.3 million TEUs and carrying over 13 million articles of anti-epidemic supplies. The Belt and Road has truly become a Silk Road for health cooperation, providing strong safeguards for keeping the global supply chains smooth and ensuring basic livelihoods and bring tangible benefits to the people in partner countries. Facing the combined impacts of the changes in the world and the pandemic, both unseen in a century, we need to resolutely promote high-quality development of Belt and Road cooperation. We should follow the principles of extensive consultation, joint contribution, and shared benefits, the philosophy of open, green, and clean cooperation, and a high-standard, people-centered, and sustainable approach. We should make sure that the Belt and Road development adapt to the new circumstances and brim with new vitality. First, we will lay greater emphasis on green Belt and Road development. We have actively carried out cooperation in areas such as green infrastructure, green energy, and green finance. For instance, in constructing the Mombasa Nairobi Railway and the China-Laos Railway, animal passages have been specifically set aside to better protect the local eco-environment. Not long ago, President Xi Jinping announced at the UN General Assembly that China will not build new coal-fired power projects abroad. This is a major decision in response to climate change, demonstrating China's strong sense of responsibility. We will continue to pursue in-depth green belt and road development, encourage businesses to fulfill their social responsibilities, draw upon the environmental, social, and governance concept, build more high-standard eco and environmental-friendly projects, and pursue greener belt and road cooperation. Second, we will lay greater emphasis on the sustainable development of Belt and Road cooperation. We have worked with the international community to help low-income countries ease their debt burden and contributed more than anyone else to the G20 debt service suspension initiative and extension. We have published the Belt and Road Debt Sustainability Framework and will follow the debt sustainability principle, improve the policy system for debt risk prevention and control, and enhance the quality and performance of investment. Third, we will lay greater emphasis on inclusive development of the Belt and Road Cooperation. Putting people's well-being first, we have launched as many as possible livelihood projects that can rapidly deliver tangible benefits to the people, with a view to increasing people's sense of benefit in partner countries. Fourth, we will lay greater emphasis on innovative development of BRI cooperation. We support Belt and Road countries in growing the digital economy, closing the digital divide, strengthening cooperation on innovation, and sharing the achievements of a new round of scientific and technological revolution and industrial transformation. BRI cooperation is not a solo performance of China. Rather, it is a chorus of all partner countries. Now, there is a huge shortfall in investment infrastructure across the world, especially in developing countries. We welcome all countries to participate in the Belt and Road Initiative, and we are open to any cooperation initiative that is conducive to greater connectivity and common development. We believe that Belt and Road cooperation fits in well with the reality of partner countries, enjoys unique strength and appeal, and is sure to have sound and sustained development and deliver more fruits of mutually beneficial cooperation. Thank you.
好，就第二排这位先生。
谢谢主持人。人民日报记者提问。
Thank you. From People's Daily.
党带领中国人民在中国特色社会主义道路上正不可逆转地走向中华民族伟大复兴。
Now,
那么请问
the Chinese nation is marching toward irreversible rejuvenation. How does the resolution assess and review?
先生回答。
我来回答这个问题。
Let me take your question.
100年来，我们党
Over the past 100 years, the party has rallied and led the people in a great endeavor, one that has contributed to an epic chapter in the millennia-long history of the Chinese nation. Valuable historical experience has been accumulated. In the resolution adopted at the plenary session, this is encapsulated in the following 10 aspects. They are upholding the party's leadership, putting the people first, advancing theoretical innovation, staying independent, following the Chinese path, maintaining a global vision, breaking new ground, standing up for ourselves, promoting the united front, and remaining committed to self-reform. I think that these 10 aspects form a holistic system, with each one of them being closely related to the others. They have made clear the fundamental guarantees of the party and the people's success, as well as the source of strength of why the party has always been the pioneer of history and why it has always stood at the forefront of history. They crystallized the advanced nature and integrity of the party and how it manages to stand at the forefront of the times. This experience does not come out of nowhere, nor is it copied from others or borrowed from others. Rather, the experience is gained through painstaking efforts and huge sacrifices. It is gained through dedication of the party. Deep into these experiences, we see both success and failures. We see blood and sweat shed, and we see wisdom and determination. It symbolizes historic progress, marks historic endeavors, and reveals the laws of history. That is why such experience is valuable assets that inspire us to move forward. It is also a sound guidance that will lead us into a better future. Now, coming back to your question on how to assess and review the historical experience, I would mainly share with you 2 points. First, the review of historical experience in the resolution is based on the trend of history and reveals the laws of it. Over the past century, the party led the people in fighting tough battles with unyielding determination, achieving great success in the new democratic revolution. Under the party's leadership, the people worked diligently for a strong China with a spirit of self-reliance, achieving great success in socialist revolution and development. The people has freed their minds and forged ahead, achieving great success in reform and opening up, as well as socialist modernization. The party has led the people in bolstering self-confidence and self-reliance and in making innovations on the basis of what has worked in the past, thereby bringing great success for socialism with Chinese characteristics in the new era. In the past 100 years, the party has led the people in creating miracles in the development of the Chinese nation, development of socialism in the world, and progress of the entire humankind. Focusing on both the continuum and different stages of history, the resolution revealed the great journey the party has been through in the past century and the great path it explored in leading the Chinese people. The resolution revealed the distinctive features, the 8 words for that different stage is the distinctive feature of that particular phase of history. It also revealed the goals and achievements of different stages in history. The resolution reviewed the great contributions the party has made in national independence, people's liberation, prosperity of the country, and progress of human civilization.
深刻总结了中国共产党领导的历史必然性。
It also looked into the historical inevitability of the party's leadership
它正确的
and the uniqueness and unique strength of socialism with Chinese characteristics.
新时期在实现中华民族伟大复兴
It
的历史
revealed
征程上
how important
和历史的时期
this new
的
era
最
we are
显
in
著
right
的
now
标
is
志。
in the
这是新时
historical
代
process
在
of
实现中华民族
national
伟大复
rejuvenation,
兴的这个历史进程中，它具有一个什么样的
which
标志呢
means
什么样的地位呢
how
什么样的
important
意义
or the
呢
importance of
我
the
认
new
为
era
决议给了
in this historical process. I think this
这就充
resolution
分地揭
has
示
given
了
us
我
an
们
answer.
党为什么能够成功。
All
就是过
these
去我们党为
have
什么能够
unveiled
成功，
the secrets of
未来
how the
我
party
们怎
succeeded
样才能继续成功。
and how we could continue along the
这就
path
是我们认识这
of
个问题的一
success.
把金钥匙，也是给了我们最科学
This is a
的
golden key, I would say,
答案，最
offering
准
us
确的答案，
a
揭
precise
示
and
了
accurate
这个问题
answer
的奥秘。
to the questions
所以，
and
对
shed
我们
light
党
on the
总结的
secrets
这些
of the success
时
of
过
the
坚持
party.
的历史经验，我们必须
All
倍
these
加珍惜，
Historical
长期
experience
坚持，
should be
并
carefully
在
preserved,
新时代的实践中
earnestly followed,
不断的丰富和
as
发
well
展。
as renewed and advanced in the new era.
第二，决议对历史经验的总结，
Second, the review of
是立
historical
足于
experience
统一
in the
全党的
resolution
思想，
aims to boost unity in
奋力
thinking
开创
among
未
party
来。
members and encourage them to
当
charge
今
the
世
course
界正
ahead.
经历100年未有之大变局，
In a world with changes unseen
中
in a
华民
century,
族伟大复兴处在关键时
we,
期。
the Chinese nation, have come to a
我
crucial
们党
stage
要
in
团结
national
带领
rejuvenation.
人民，在
The
新
party
时代
needs to
坚持发
rally
展
and lead
中国
the
特色社
people
会主义，
in upholding and developing
开创
socialism with
全
Chinese
面
characteristics
建设社
in the
会主
new
义
era,
国家新局面，
and in opening up new prospects
需要我
in
们
building a modern
在对
socialist
历史
country.
的深入思考中，
This
认
requires
清
us
历史方位，
to truly understand where we stand
把
in
握历史
history
规律，
and grasp the laws of it.
教育引导全党
All of us party
牢
members
牢地记住
should bear in mind
中国共产党是什么，
what the party is
要干什么。
and
这个
what
根本
its
的问题。
mission is. These are issues of fundamental importance.
所以我们看到决议，它又是从历史的规律性和
So we
历史
see
的
that the
主动
resolution
性的
focuses
统一的
on
高度
both，the laws of history
它进行
and
深刻
how
的
we may
总结。
shape the course of it.
它深刻总结
From that
中华
standpoint,
民族伟大复兴的
the
战略
resolution
全局
analyzes how
和世界
the great
100年未有
rejuvenation
之
of the
大变
Chinese
局
nation and the
它
worldwide
的辩证
changes unseen in a
互
century
动的关
would
系
interact
和规
with
律，
each other.
深刻的总结进入新发展阶段，
It looks at the logic
贯彻新发
of
展理念，
ushering in new
构
development
建新
stage,
发展格局的
following
历史
the
的
new
大逻辑。
development philosophy, and fostering a
深
new
刻的总
development
结
paradigm.
在新的形势下，统筹推
It
进
reviews
五位一体总体布局，协调推
The new
进四个全面
requirements in the new
战略
era
布局的
of the
历史
coordinated
新要求。
implementation of the five-sphere integrated plan
深刻的
and the
总结
four-pronged
实现
comprehensive
中华民
strategy.
族伟大复兴的历史必然性。
It also explores the historical
这样的话，就教育
inevitability
引
of
导
the
全
great
党
rejuvenation of the Chinese nation.
抓住历史机
The
遇，
resolution therefore encourages the
非
whole
遗
party
无阻
to
向
seize
前进，
historic opportunities,
奋力
forge
地
ahead
去
despite
开
difficulties,
创、开拓我们
and chart
更加美好的明天，
a new
创造
and better
更加
course of
伟
history
大的事业。我就回
that
答
will
到这
give
里
us
谢谢。
a more noble historical
由于
cause.
时间关系，
Thank you.
最后一个提
In
问，
the interest of time, one last question.
请这位女士。
谢谢主持人，我是香港紫荆杂志记者。
Thank
过去
you.
几十年，中
From
国创造了
Zijing
经济快
magazine,
速
the
发
past
展的
decades
奇
have
迹，已经
witnessed
成为世
rapid
界第二
growth
大经济
of the
体。
Chinese
对
economy,
于中国
making
创
it
造
the
经
second
济
largest in the
的奇
world.
迹的秘诀，
The world is
国
trying
内
to
外都
find
在
out
研究讨
the
论。
secrets
请问对
to
这个秘
China's
诀您
economic
如何看？
miracle.
这对未来有什么启示？
How do you
谢
see
谢。
such a miracle, and what does it say for the future?
好，谢谢您的提问。
Thank you for your
党的
question.
19届六中全会啊通过的决议，
The resolution
全面
adopted
系
at the
统
6th
总结了
plenary session
党的百年
has
奋斗、重大成就
systematically
和历史经验
reviewed the great
是一个
achievements and
汇聚
historical
了
experience of the
革命、
party in the past
建设、
century.
改革事业
It is
成
a
功、
treasury with rich
极为
intellectual
丰富的
resources on the
成功经
successful
验、极为
practice
丰
of
富的思
revolutions,
想、智慧的宝库。
development, as
那么
well
其中
as
呢，也包
reforms.
含了我国啊创造经济快速发展奇迹的
Indeed,
秘
it
诀。
does shed light
我
on
理
the
解呢，
secret of
特
China's
别重要的
economic
有几个方
miracle
面。
of rapid growth.
一，
There are a number of commitments that have made
坚
the
持
miracle
发
possible.
展是硬道理。
First, a commitment to
党的11届
development
三中全会
as
以
the top
来，
priority.
我们啊坚持以
Since
经济
the
建设
third
为中
plenary
心，
session of the
把
11th
发展
CPC
作为
Central Committee,
党
we
执
have
政
put
兴国的
economic
第一要
development
务，
front and
为践行
center
党的初心使命
and made it
奠
the
定
top
了
priority
坚实的
of the
物质
party
基础。
in governing the country.
中国
This
特色社会
has
主义
helped
进入了
lay a
新时
solid
代，
material
赋予了
foundation
发展
for the party's
新的
efforts to
内
fulfill
涵。
its mission. As
我们呢
socialism with
绝
Chinese
不能
characteristics
走
enters a new
粗放
era,
发展的
development
老
has
路，
been given new
必须坚持
meanings.
以人民为中心的发展思想，
We
坚
should
持
cast
润
aside
水
the
青山
old
就是金山银
development
山，
path.
全面贯彻
Rather, we
新
should
发
be
展理
guided
念，
by the
加
principle
快
that
构
green
建
and
新发
lush
展格
mountains
局，
are
着
invaluable
力推动
assets.
高质量发
The
展。
new development philosophy
是
should be
新时
fully
代的
delivered, a
硬
new
道理。
development paradigm fostered, and
二是
high
坚
quality
持深
development
化改
pursued.
革，
This is the
建
top
立社会主
priority.
义市场
Second,
经济
a
体
commitment
制，
to
实
deepening
现社
reform.
会主义
We
与
have built
市场经
a
济
socialist
有
market
机结
economy
合。
where socialism and
这是
market
我们党
economy
的一个伟
is
大的创
skillfully
举。
combined. This is
改
a
革呢
creative
破
approach
除
of
了
the
过
party.
去僵化的
Reform has
计划
helped us
经
break
济体
away
制的
from the
束缚，
rigidity of the planned
中国经
economy,
济变成了
making the Chinese
一
economy
池活水，
a
极大的
really
解放和
dynamic
发
one,
展了社会
as
生
well
产
as
力。
unleashing and
三
developing
呢是
social
坚持对外
productivity.
开放，
Third, a
打
commitment
破封闭
to
状
opening
态，
up.
实行对外开
Opening
放，
up, as opposed
使我们
to
呢
closing
能
the
够
doors,
充分的利
has
用
enabled
国内国
China
际
to harness
两个
both
市场、
domestic
两种资
and
源，
international
深
markets.
度参与经济
Deeply
全球化，
involved in economic
以开放
globalization,
促改革、促发
China
展，
has advanced reforms
也为
and
世界发展
development
繁
by
荣
opening up,
做出了
making
越
greater
来越大
contributions
的贡献
to。global development
我们
and
呢要
prosperity.
坚持啊
We
对
will
外开放的
adhere
基本国
to
策
the
不动
fundamental
摇，
state policy of opening
统
up,
筹发展和安全，
strike a
开
balance
放和安
between
全，
development
以
and
高水
security
平对外开放，
and
促进
between
高质
openness
量发展
and。security. We seek to pursue
四
high quality
是
development
坚持啊
by
把
opening
创
up
新
at a higher
作为引领
standard.
发展的
Fourth,
第一动力。
a commitment to making
多
innovation
年来呢，
the main
我们一
driver
直坚
of
持
development.
科学技术
Science
是
and
第一生
technology
产力这样一个
is the
重
top
要论断，
contributor to
实施科
productivity.
教兴国战略，创
This
新
is
驱
something
动
that we
发
have
展
been
战略，
adhering to.
加强
We
产
will hence
权
adopt a
和
strategy of
知识产权
innovation-driven
保护，
development,
强化国家
strengthen
战略科技力
protection
量，
of
提
property
升
rights
企业
and
在创
intellectual
新中的
property
主
rights,
体地位，
shore up
加快实现科技
technologies
自
of
立
national
自
strategic
强。
importance, enhance the major role of
五呢
companies
是
in
坚持
innovation,
啊
and step
两
up
个
efforts to
毫不动
pursue
摇。
self-reliance and
我们
greater
坚持和
development
完
in
善社会主义
technologies.
基本经济
Fifth,
制度，
a commitment to
毫
the
不
two
动摇，
unswervings. To be
巩
specific,
固和
we
发
will
展公
unswervingly
有制经济，
consolidate
毫不
and
动摇，
develop
鼓
the
励
public
支持
sector
引导
and
非公有
unswervingly
制经济
encourage,
发展，
support, and guide the
建立和完
development
善
of the non-public sector.
中国特色现代企业制度，做强、
We
做
will
优、做大，
establish a
弘扬企业家
system
精神，
with
构
Chinese
建
characteristics,
亲清政商关系，
champion
促进公有制经济健康
entrepreneurship,
发展和
build
非
a
公有
cordial and clean relationship between government and businesses and facilitate the healthy growth of not just the non-public sector, but also economic participants in the non-public sector. We will also endeavor to promote fair competition, mutual reinforcements, and common development of economies and market entities, regardless of their forms of ownership. Sixth, a commitment to better aligning an efficient market and well-functioning government. We need to properly manage the relationship between government and the market, give the market a decisive role in allocating resources while better leveraging the role of the government. We need to transform the functions of the government. On one hand, we should foster absence of the government or unnecessary and unwarranted intervention. On the other hand, we should step up public services and market oversight, effectively handle cases such as monopoly or disorderly expansion of capital, and strive to foster a market-oriented, world-class business environment that is governed by law. Seventh, a commitment to pursuing progress while maintaining stability. This is an important principle of the party in its governance and an approach in economic work. We should pursue progress on the basis of stability and not hasten efforts for the sake of seeing results. For instance, hard lessons of the Great Leap Forward and collectivization movement in the 1950s must still be heeded. In our pursuit of carbon peak and carbon neutrality, as well as common prosperity, we should always ensure stability while making progress on that basis, one step forward at a time. Eighth, a commitment to the party's leadership, upholding the Central Committee's authority and its centralized, unified leadership is the fundamental guarantee of our work. We need to strengthen the party's overall leadership and economic work, seek truth from facts, work in line with law of the economics, and unleash the proactiveness, agency, and creativity of all elements. We need to be systemic and more coordinated, focus on the principal contradictions, leverage the strategic guiding role of planning, and harness the advantages of the socialist system, which enable us to get things done by mobilizing resources. All these are the things we've learned in the past. They also inspire us to chart a course of the future. In face of the new missions in the new era, we, under the leadership of the CPC Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, should stay committed to and make good use of what we've learned in the past, and that will enable the giant ship of the Chinese economy steadily sail far ahead, creating new miracles of development. Thank you. Thank you. And I would like to thank all journalists. This will be the end of today's press conference. Thank you.
That was a press conference held by the CPC Central Committee, briefing the press and media on the major outcomes and guiding principles of the 6th plenary session of the 19th CPC Central Committee. Now, for more insight, we're joined in the studio by Associate Professor Wang Xingzong from Beijing Normal University. So, thank you very much for joining us, Professor. As we just heard, two major outcomes from this crucial plenary session. One is, of course, reviewing and the adopting of this crucial resolution on CPC's achievement and experience in the past 100 years since its founding. And second is the decision to hold the CPC, the 20th CPC National Congress in the latter half of the year 2022. Let's start with the first one. Why the CPC has paid so much attention and effort on reviewing its history?
Well, I think first of all, this is a very important year. This year represents the 100th anniversary of founding of Communist Party of China. It's also marking the achievement of the first centenary goal, which is to make China become a moderately well-off society in all aspects. It also represents a start for the second centenary goal, which is to make China turn into a socialist strong nation.
When the People's Republic marks its 100th.
Yeah, in 2049. Yeah. So this is a very important critical juncture, and it makes sense that the party sits back and review what has happened. Like the press conference mentioned at various points, where did the party come from? How has the party come along the way to turn itself into one of the strongest parties in the world? How did the party take the leadership to turn the entire Chinese nation from a poor and weak nation into today's strong and global power. How did all that happen? I think it's worth careful and comprehensive review, and this is exactly what this resolution was meant to be. It was meant to be a review of the achievements and experiences accumulated in all these years.
Right, Professor, let's get more context of this critical juncture, as you just mentioned. The CPC Central Committee is the highest leading authority of the party when the National Congress is not in session. The committee's political bureau convenes several plenary sessions during its 5-year term to make decisions and policies. Gao Yiming explains how the party's National Congress and the Central Committee's plenary sessions operate.
The CPC's National Congress is the highest body of China's ruling party. It's held once every 5 years and is convened by the party's Central Committee. The Central Committee holds a plenary or full session every year, and up to 7 of them within its 5-year term. These sessions are convened by the Central Committee's Political Bureau. Around 2,000 delegates attend the week-long session of National Congress. They elect a new Central Committee and discuss major issues within the party. A plenary session is attended by hundreds of the full members and alternate members. Normally, the very first plenary session will elect the Political Bureau and its Standing Committee, as well as the General Secretary of the CPC Central Committee. The following 6 sessions focus on other issues, including appointment of leaders of national organs, agricultural development, economic plans, and reform.
So let's continue our discussion on the resolutions, if you will, especially on party's history. Not many of them. This is the third one, right? The first one was adopted in 1945, the second in 1981. And each of them have played a significant and profound role in the party's development and also on the course of the development of the whole nation. Now let's focus on the third one, which has just been adopted. Of course, it looks back at the whole history of the party in the past 100 years, but as the officials just mentioned, it gives a focus on the new era. That means after the 18th Party's National Congress in 2012. What do you make of this arrangement?
Well, this arrangement makes sense because, according to the officials, who briefed us on this resolution that was just passed, the historical lessons have been well reviewed in the first 2 resolutions, and the historical achievements since 1981 during the Reform Open Up era have also been covered in various significant party documents. What has not been significantly covered so far is the achievement that has been made since the 18th Party Congress, and that's why this resolution gives more focus. Although it, of course, integrates the previous experiences and achievements into this entire review of party history, but the focus is given to the history since the 18th Party Congress. And if you think about the policy achievements since the 18th Party Congress, there have been a lot of important ones, including, for example, the achievement of the poverty alleviation goal, which was done last year. And China lifted over 750 million people out of poverty in the past 10 years. And the Chinese GDP per capita has grown very rapidly. And if we go all the way back to the Reform Open Up era, in the beginning of the Reform Open Up, China's per capita GDP was about $100 per $100, but now we're talking about over $10,000. That makes us into the upper middle income country. We're getting near to the threshold to the higher income country. So the list is on. There are many achievements that need to be reviewed and summarized since the 18th Party Congress.
Right, as we just heard from the Central Committee, of course the CPC is a political party, upholds Marxism, but it also puts a lot of emphasis on theory and finding out the true theory for the time as it develops. So you mentioned quite a lot about the achievements in the new era in the past decade. So what's the guiding theory and the guiding thought of this particular period?
Well, I think overall the theory of the party has always been sticking with Marxism, and Marxism served as a guiding theoretical orientation from the very beginning of the founding of PRC. But what's important for the Communist Party of China is that it has always adapted Marxism into the Chinese reality. And Mao Zedong did that significantly, and the succeeding leaders, including Deng Xiaoping, Jiang Zemin, Hu Jintao, all made significant endeavors to incorporate Marxism with the Chinese reality. Now, coming back to the new era, I think what's important in this new theory, the continued theory or renewed theory on socialism with Chinese characteristics in the new era, is that it has further incorporated Marxist ideas of achieving social justice, common prosperity is part of that, and to reconcile the differences and conflicts between social classes. And the way of doing it is to adopt the new developmentalism. Because only through development can China shred off the burden of class differences and other baggages that prevents China from further development.
Right, and the document also says the thought you just talked about, of course, that is the Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics in the new era. Officials also say that it's a reflection of the Chinese culture and the Chinese spirit, the essence of them in the new era. How do you interpret that?
Well, culture is a very important part of the Chinese political theory. And so as much as China has adopted elements from Marxism, it has also been basing its political theory on its traditional culture. And in the new era, the party has been calling for restoring many traditional activities and beliefs which were serving the greater social good for thousands of years in China. So, for example, this calling for establishing a clean party, it's based on the traditional belief that the ancient rulers got their mandate of heaven, but they would lose the mandate of heaven if they are against people's interest. So you really have to prioritize people's interest above anything else. And this is based on the traditional culture. And I think this calling back to this traditional belief and incorporating it into the new era political theory is very critical.
Now, Professor, let's take a look at the economic side of this crucial meeting. And in the last century, China's economy has transformed from one dependent on farming to one that thrives on industry, trade and technology. Now, here's a look at some of the major changes.
Before the concept of GDP was introduced in 1934, customs revenue was a key parameter to measure a nation's economic strength. Back in 1921, China's customs revenue stood at no more than 100 million silver dollars. That number slowly climbed and quadrupled 10 years later. As Western nations industrialized in the 19th century, China remained largely an agrarian economy, putting it at a disadvantage globally. The Japanese invasion and an ensuing civil war devastated China's economy. 3 years after the founding of the People's Republic, the nation's GDP stood at only 68 billion yuan. It wasn't until 1978 that real changes began to take place, when China started economic reforms and opened up to the outside. In 1986, the GDP surpassed 1 trillion yuan. In year 2000, China overtook Italy as the 6th largest economy in the world, only slightly behind France. But the GDP was still only 1/10 of that of the United States, the world's largest. 1 year later, China joined the World Trade Organization and has since integrated itself further with the world. In 2010, it overtook Japan to become the world's 2nd largest economy. China's economy is not only large in size, but also resilient. Last year, despite the pandemic, China was the only major economy to register a positive growth. And its GDP per capita reached over $10,000 US, more than 600 times the nominal value in 1952. And the OECD predicts this year, China will contribute 1/3 of world economic growth. And it's expected to make even more progress when the world recovers from the pandemic.
So Professor, those were historical achievements in the Chinese economy, but what about the tasks right now and for the near future? From moderately prosperous society to common prosperity. Now the focus on building common prosperity in China, as officials just mentioned, is high quality development. What does that entail, high quality development?
Well, I think overall, China is at another critical juncture where, all these decades of economic modernization have caused the social consequences. One of the consequences, obviously, is the disparity problem. And, in the past decade, the party has done a lot of work to address the poverty issue. And now that has been accomplished. The next task is to further close the gap between different social classes. So that's where the common prosperity idea comes from. I think it's very important to build up a stronger middle class and a stronger middle income social class in order to really close the gap. So coming back to your question about high quality, you have to really achieve high quality development.
Obviously, it's not only about income distribution, right?
Right. It's also about the other imbalances that have been caused by the decades of modernization. For example, the balance between sustainable development and the rapidity, the speed of development. We place a great priority on the speed, but it has also caused ecological problems, and that's why in the past decade, the party has been very interested in very hardworking on the issue of ecological improvement. And so high quality refers to closing the gap of income, closing the gap on the imbalance between the speed of development and the ecological sustainability of the development.
What about the whole institutional building? Because also the document mentioned this idea of whole process people's democracy, saying that it's not only a formality, it's a democracy that fits China's reality and let people to participate in each and every link of a democracy in the chain. So how is that unique to China? And also, how's that different to the Western democracy, as the United States has been bragging about?
Well, first of all, I think democracy is a good thing, But democracy has not. It doesn't simply have one definition. Democracy means people take control of power, take control of their own interests and rights. So Western democracy has developed for many, many years, and the primary characteristic of Western democracy is procedure. So they follow very strict procedures, and procedure becomes the source of legitimacy of their democracy. But it doesn't have to be the only type of form of democracy around the world. It also doesn't make sense for any country to impose that type of democracy in other nations. So China has developed socialist democracy since the very beginning of PRC was founded. And for all these decades, it has explored different ways of, endowing rights to citizens so that they're more able to effectively participate in this process, so that their interests can be better protected. And speaking of culture previously, the Chinese democracy is also very much embedded in the traditional Chinese culture, which values outcome, delivery, and performance very, very much. So that's why the party has paid a lot of attention to delivering what the people really want, and it has done a great deal of hard work on that. So, I'm citing a quote from Samuel Huntington, political scientist from the U.S. In his book in 1966, he said, "The most important political distinction among countries is not the form of government, but rather the level of government." Right. So that means is really the distinction is how much a government can do to protect people's interests, to get what people want. That's more important than the form of democracy. And China has explored and successfully found its own identity of how democracy should become.
Thank you very much, Associate Professor Wang Xizong from Beijing Normal University. And that's it for this special coverage on CGTN. And in about 50